experiencing unexpected losses in your fish stock, cannibalism might be the cause. Cannibalism causes the most highest loss in fish farm. So you need to take note of this. So in this video, we shall be looking at cannibalism, what it is, why it happens, how to identify cannibalized fish, and more importantly, how to prevent and manage cannibalism. So stick around, because the information you are about to hear could save your farm and help you boost your yields. So let's get started by understanding what fish cannibalism is. Now let's look at what cannibalism is. Fish cannibalism refers to the act of one fish consuming another fish of the same species. It might sound shocking, but it's a natural behavior in many aquatic species. However, such behavior can't be controlled. So, and this is what we are coming to look at here in this video, how we can control cannibalism. So it's very important you stick around. Now let's look at species that are prone to cannibalism. In other words, which type of fish are being cannibalized? Catfish, first and foremost. Cannibalism in catfish is very high, and I have experienced that many times in my farm. Cannibalism in catfish is high because catfish are behaving, or they are having cannibalistic behavior, and that means that they attack anything that comes into their way, including themselves. So their cannibalistic behavior makes cannibalism to be very high in catfish. Another one is tilapia. Tilapia also experience cannibalism because they eat themselves. We also have trout. Trout is also one of cannibalism fish species. Then we have salmon. Salmon also cannibalize. We have barramundi, which also cannibalize. Now let's look at the various stages of cannibalism. Which stage of fish production cycle do you experience cannibalism in your farm? First, the larva stage, there's cannibalism. That is when you are hatching them and they are still small. At that stage, they are not the same sizes. So those that are a bit larger than the smaller ones, they take advantage of the smaller ones and cannibalize them. The juvenile stage, that is when they pass from the larval stage to the fry and to the juvenile stage. This stage 2, cannibalism is high, because at that stage 2, their growth is not even. So the bigger one always consume the smaller ones. The adult stage, that is when the cannibalism is also high, especially if the feeding pattern or the nutrient of the feed is not appropriate. So they try to use each other as food. So adult stage cannibalism is very high. Now let's look at why does cannibalism occur in fish farm. In other words, what are the causes of fish cannibalism? First and foremost is the size differences. It is very common that despite the fish are hatched at the same time, they are stocked at the same time, yet they are not going to be the same size. So the size difference causes cannibalism, because the bigger ones will always take advantage of smaller ones and consume them. So the size difference is one of the causes. The second one is hunger and inadequate feeding. When the fish are not fed well and they are hungry, at that time they use the weaker ones as food, or the bigger ones attack the smaller ones and use them as food. Also, if the feeding is not frequent, for instance, if you space the feeding period such a way that from time they eat to the next meal they become very hungry, then cannibalism is also high at this stage. So it is very important to know the timing frame of how to feed your fish. We shall look at that later. And also the type of feed that you are going to give your fish is very important. Another cause is overcrowding. Overcrowding is when you stock your fish more than the capacity of your fish pond. We say you overcrowd them. And when you overcrowd them, the fish try to compete for resources such as feed, oxygen, and space. So when they are competing for such resources, the weaker ones again will become prey and vulnerable to the bigger ones to always consume them as feed in order to free and get more space and more resources. The fourth one has to do with lack of environmental enrichment. Environmental enrichment here has to do with providing hidden places or hiding places for your fish. In some fish ponds, for instance, if you are having the eating pond, you can plant aquatic plants, and such aquatic plants can serve as a hidden places for the smaller fish, so that when they are being attacked by the bigger ones, they can rush into those places and hide there. Or even if you are using the pond systems, you can put woods, stones, or whatever things that the smaller ones can get shelter. They can always go and hide there, and that means that when the bigger ones try to attack them, they can find shelter in those hidden places. So that's why we say environmental enrichment. Now let's look at the impact of cannibalism on your fish farm. What are the consequences of cannibalism in your fish farm? First and foremost, stock reduction. Once they attack and consume, the dead ones or the consumed ones are being taken or are being removed from your fish, and therefore your stock has been reduced. For instance, if you have stocked 1,000 fish in your fish pond and 50 of them has been cannibalized, you have lost 50 fish in your stock. There's no doubt in that. The number 2 is uneven growth rate. So as the bigger ones attack and consume the smaller ones always try to isolate themselves, to hide from them. And that means that even when you are feeding them, the smaller ones are always timid and don't come closer to feed. They always feed when the feed come. They always eat when the feed comes to their way. And in situations where the fish is not adequate, the bigger ones will consume all the feed, and that means that the smaller ones will not get the feed, and they will continue to grow thinner, and the bigger will continue to grow bigger because they always get much of the feed and consume. So uneven growth is one of the impact of cannibalism in fish farm. Now it also causes financial loss, because if you have stocked 1,000 fish and 50 are gone to cannibalism, these 50 are financial loss, because when you are going to sell out your fish, those 50 will not be part of that. So the weight of them are not part of that, and that means that it is a financial loss to you as the fish farmer. Another aspect of financial loss is that once you keep feeding your fish, they are consuming the feed, as for instance, like I said earlier, with 1,000 feet, and getting to the harvesting stage, they have consumed some of them, they have cannibalized some of them, and those who are gone, it means that you will not get up to the 1,000 fish again. So, but you have fed 1,000 feet, so the feed that is lost is also financial loss to you as the farmer. Another impact of cannibalism is increased stress. As the fish attack and consume, it spreads stress among them, especially the smaller ones. Like I said, they always try to find shelter, they always isolate themselves, they always hide, and that causes stress. And this stress can also lead to further mortality or further death, because as stress is among them, they are prone to diseases, and when the disease attack them, it can kill them as well. Now the fifth one has to do with injury to the farmer. You will be surprised, how does cannibalism cause injury to the farmer? The reason is that fish, for instance catfish, their cannibalistic nature or behavior makes them attack anything that comes into the fish pond, and that includes you as the fish farmer. When you put your hand or you go in there to do something, the first thing, they attack you. And I have had instances where I have been injured by my catfish, as you have seen on the screen. Instances where the aerator is not working, or the rust is not working, or the bed filter is removed and you try to put it in. So once I dip my hand in, I always receive attacks from the fish. They'll come and bite you and cause injury. So this is called because of their cannibalistic behavior. Now, how do you identify cannibalized fish? Yes, because fish that are dead naturally or by diseases and fish that are being cannibalized, they have some similarities. So if you don't know how to identify this fish is being cannibalized, you will even be experiencing cannibalism in your pond and you will not even know. So I'm going to show you two ways of identifying cannibalized fish. First and foremost, all dead fish float on the surface of the fish pond. When they are first dead, they'll go under the fish pond. But when they soak water and they start to decay, then they will then be suspended on the surface of the fish pond. Both natural death or both normal death and cannibalism, or death that are caused by cannibalism. So to identify the cannibalism, when you pick the dead fish, try to check whether you can see traces of eating by others, or some part of the flesh is not there. So these are indications that that fish has been cannibalized, or you have seen wounds in them. So when portion of the meat or the flesh is not there, such as indication that it is being cannibalized. Now another thing to check is that you can find remains in the bottom of the fish pond. So sometimes they might eat them, or they might eat the fish completely, leaving the skeleton or the bones or just portion of the remains. So sometimes if it is left with the bones or just part of the flesh, it will not float on the surface, it will go under the bottom. So you always find out that when you are changing your water, then when you drain the water, then you can find such in there, or during harvesting, then you find it, or you go in there to check something and then you will find such remains in there. So the remains always show that there is cannibalism in your fish farm. So these are the two ways of finding cannibalism in your fish farm. Now let's look at prevention. How do you prevent cannibalism in your fish farm? Because once the problem occurs, we need to find solution. So how do you prevent cannibalism in your fish farm? First and foremost, always do what we call grading and sorting. Sorting or grading is a process of separating fish by sizes or by color. Here we are looking at by sizes. So once their growth is not even, some are bigger, some are smaller, and because the bigger ones will always attack the smaller ones and consume them, the best thing to do is to have what we call sorting. So try to separate them and put the bigger ones in one pond and have the smaller ones in other pond, so that they will live separately. That means that the bigger ones will not have access to the smaller ones, and that will also means that they will both have equal share of their feed. So regular salting is very important. Second thing to do is you have to have proper stocking density. Don't overcrowd your fish, and don't also understock. When you understock here, you're not experiencing cannibalism, but you will have financial losses because you are going to leave a lot of money on the table. But make sure that you do not overstock them. When you overstock them, and then the stock is higher than the capacity of the fish pond, and like I said earlier, because they'll be competing for resources such as feed, oxygen, and space, they will try to consume each other to free themselves or to get more space. So proper stocking will help reduce, if not prevent, cannibalism completely. Now we talk about adequate feeding. Make sure that you give your fish enough feed. The feed that you are giving them is enough. And also make sure that the feed you are giving them has enough nutrient, protein, or whatever nutrient that is required by your fish. Make sure that it is present in your feed. So if the feed has all the nutrients, they will not consume each other for extra nutrients. We also talk about type of feed. The type of feed that you are giving them is very important. You can try to avoid to do with flesh and try to look at natural feed such as plants or vegetables. And the greater mistake some people or some fish farmers also do is that they give back the dead fish to the fish to consume, or they give meat. For instance, if there's a poultry farm are dead, they will chop the meat and throw it into the fish. Yes, they will eat it very well, but you are training the fish to eat meat or flesh. So instances where they are hungry, because they are already exposed to eating meat or flesh, then they will attack each other as feed again, because that's what they are used to. But when you try to avoid that, then you are also trying to show your fish that flesh is not their feed. Now look at the timing and frequency of your feed. When they are still small, feed them at least twice a day. This is what I do, because earlier when I started with 3 times a day, morning, afternoon, evening, then I realized that in the afternoon they will only eat small. Even they eat small, the more that they eat somehow larger quantity. So when I decided to start feeding them morning and evening, then you realize that they will eat the 2 periods. That is when they are still small, fingerlings. But when they are up to 4 months and above, at this time they are bigger enough to eat once. But make sure that even if you are feeding them once a day, either in the morning or in the evening, preferable in the evening, give them enough quantity that can keep them till the following time or the following day, that same period. But when you give them a little feed again, and then you are going to give them or space them at least 12 hours, when they become hungry, they have no option than to attack and consume the weaker ones or each other, and that will cause, or that will make cannibalism to be very high. So your frequency of feed and your timing of feed is also very important. And then you can also have the optimal environmental conditions. Make sure that your water condition, such as oxygen level, pH level, nitrogen level, and all the nutrient or all the water condition is perfect for your fish. In that case, there will not be much stress and they will not consume each other. And also, like I mentioned earlier, try to provide environmental enrichment. Provide hidden places for them. If you're using the pond aquaculture system, such as the earthen pond, you can have aquatic plants in the fish pond which they can hide. The other pond systems, such as tarpaulin, concrete, and others, you can also put woods, stones, and whatever that they can hide. So providing such places for hiding, and also making sure that your water condition is paramount and good is also one of the ways of preventing fish cannibalism in your farm. Now, also introduce antibiotics into your fish pond. Sometimes when your fish is being through stress, or you realize that they are not doing well, add antibiotics. You can add the medical ones, that's the chemical ones, and you can also add natural ones such as salts and bitter leaves. These two remedies, especially the natural one, which is bitter leaves, is so important, and using it in your fish farm is going to help you tremendously and save your cost. I've had a video on the benefits and application of bitter leaves in your fish farm, so I'll leave that in your description. Kindly watch that out, and then it's going to help you to treat your fish and also reduce cannibalism. I'll also leave the link for the application of salt in your fish farm. All these are ways of putting antibiotics in your fish that will treat the fish, that will also prevent cannibalism in your farm. Now, also use barriers such as nets. Barriers in the sense that if you are not having 2 ponds or several ponds to sort your fish in, you can put a net or a barrier and put the bigger ones at one side and the smaller ones at other sides, and put the net or something that will prevent the bigger ones from having access to the smaller ones. In that case, if they are not able to access the smaller ones, the bigger ones cannot attack and consume the smaller ones. So putting barriers in your pond can also prevent cannibalism. Now, also do what we call selective breeding. Yes, they are all catfish or they're all tilapia, but some breeds, some species or they have higher cannibalistic behavior than each other. So try to select the fish that has less cannibalistic behavior and breed them and stock them and rear those ones. Because they have less cannibalistic behavior, cannibalism in them is going to be lesser. So try to get those fish that has lesser cannibalistic behavior in your farm, and that will prevent cannibalism. Now, how do you handle cannibalism once it is occurred? In this situation, it has occurred already. So how do you handle or manage that? Now, you have to do immediate grading or sorting, like I said earlier. So sort them. Try to separate the bigger ones from the smaller ones. Secondly, identify the aggressive fish and separate them. If you realize that there's a particular fish which is bigger, or there are no more than one, and those ones are always attacking the smaller ones or the other ones, try to identify and separate those aggressive fish from the rest, and you can have the chance of saving them from that cannibalism. Now, adjust feeding practice, and this is the most effective way, and that's what I often use, and it's always best to handle cannibalism. When you realize that cannibalism is high at a particular time, try to adjust your feeding quantity. Increase the quantity of the feed you are giving them, or adjust the timing. If you are feeding them once a day and you realize that cannibalism is higher or is there, you can feed them twice. Or try to provide higher nutritional feed that contains all or most of their nutrients, and that means that they are going to be okay. So feeding is very important. You will realize that we are talking about feeding. It's very important in your fish farm, and it can save you a lot of mortality, and that includes cannibalism. So you can also have automatic feeders that will feed them time to time, and this will save you costs and energy and also prevent cannibalism. So I'm going to leave a link to automatic feeder which you can check out, and then when you get it, it's going to help you in your fish farm. So feeding is very important and is one of the ways of controlling cannibalism. So make sure that you adjust your feeding practices. Now, cannibalism, let's look at the conclusion. Cannibalism is a natural behavior in fish, but it's one that we can manage and prevent. So by understanding why it happens and implementing the right strategies, you can protect your stock and maximize your farm's potentials. So remember, managing fish farming is all about staying proactive. If you see signs of cannibalism, feeder, which you can check out, and then when you get it, it's going to help you in your fish farm. So feeding is very important and is one of the ways of controlling cannibalism. So make sure that you adjust your feeding practices. Now, cannibalism, let's look at the conclusion. Cannibalism is a natural behavior in fish, but it's one that we can manage and prevent. So by understanding why it happens and implementing the right strategies, you can protect your stock and maximize your farm's potentials. So remember, managing fish farming is all about staying proactive. If you see signs of cannibalism, act fast. Act fast. Try to implement the measures I have enumerated, and then you will minimize losses. So in order to have successful in your fish farm, I have put up a guide, a step-by-step guide from stock to harvest in the PDF form. So this ebook is a guide that can help you tremendously. So try to check it out and then get it. I will leave a link in the description. If I have provided value so far, please kindly subscribe to this channel, like the video and share so that it will reach more people. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. My name is Abdulaziz Issa, and this is Fako.